It was a cloudy morning when Daniel Reyes put on his uniform and badge. He had done this every day for the past 12 years. As an immigration officer, his job was clear. Follow the law, handle the cases, and don't get involved emotionally. That was the rule, and Daniel followed rules. He believed in order, and he believed in doing what was right, at least what the system called right. His phone buzzed with a new assignment. A woman named Lila Alvarez had been flagged during a hospital record check. She had no legal documents. She had given birth in the U.S. 6 years ago, and since then had disappeared into a small suburban neighborhood in Texas. Someone had reported her name after she used it to sign in for her daughter's checkup. Now her file was on Daniel's desk. The order was simple. Confirm the address. Pick her up. Begin the deportation process. To Daniel, it looked routine. He'd done this many times before. Some people cried, some begged, some ran. But in the end, he was just doing his job. He didn't make the laws, he only followed them. He drove to the neighborhood around noon. It was quiet. The houses were small but well kept. Lawns were neatly trimmed. It didn't look like the kind of place where people would hide, but Daniel knew looks could be deceiving. He parked a few houses away and checked the file again. House number 46. As he walked toward the door, he noticed a pair of small shoes on the front step. Tiny, pink, with little stars on the side. A child lived here. That wasn't in the file. He paused for a second, but then knocked firmly. The door opened. Slowly, a woman stood there, her dark hair pulled back into a braid. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed fear. Not the kind of fear that made people scream or run. It was quiet, heavy fear. Like someone who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Lila Alvarez? Daniel asked, holding up the file. She nodded once. Her voice was soft. Yes, I am Lila. I'm with Immigration Enforcement. I need to speak with you, he said. He expected her to protest or maybe lie, but she didn't. Instead, a little girl peeked out from behind her mother. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her hair was messy from a nap, and she held a teddy bear with one missing eye. She looked up at Daniel with wide brown eyes, silently watching. Daniel cleared his throat. I have an order to bring you in. Lila didn't say anything. She just looked down at her daughter and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Can I say goodbye to her? Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel hesitated. The law allowed it, a short goodbye before detainment. Yes, he said. That's when the little girl stepped forward. She looked up at Daniel, holding tightly to her mother's hand. Her lips trembled. And then, in a voice full of innocence and fear, she spoke. Please, don't take my mommy. The world seemed to freeze. Daniel had heard many things in his job. People shouted, blamed him, called him cruel. But this was different. This was a child. Her voice wasn't angry. It was scared. Honest. Heartbreaking. Daniel looked at Lila. She wasn't moving. She just stood there waiting, like she had no strength left to fight. The girl was still staring at him, her tiny hand holding her mother's fingers tightly, as if letting go would mean losing everything. Daniel felt something inside shift. He looked down at the file in his hands. The paper suddenly felt heavier than usual. The words printed on it, the codes, the orders, the dates, all seemed to fade in front of the child's simple request. He took a deep breath. I need to make a few calls, he said. I'll be back soon. Lila looked surprised. You're not taking me now. He shook his head slowly. Not yet. He turned and walked back to his car, heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in years. As he sat behind the wheel, he didn't start the engine right away. He just sat there, staring at the dashboard, the little girl's words echoing in his mind. Please, don't take my mommy. It was supposed to be a normal assignment. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. Daniel had done his job for a long time. He believed in following rules, but for the first time, the rules felt wrong. And, this time, a part of him wasn't sure he could follow them. Daniel didn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about the little girl's voice. No matter how much he tried to distract himself, with music, with the TV, even by reading old case reports, her soft words kept echoing in his mind. "Please, don't take my mommy." He had heard a lot of things during arrests, but nothing had ever stayed with him like this. Maybe it was because the child hadn't screamed. She hadn't thrown a tantrum. She had just stood there, scared, but strong, and asked for something so simple, to keep her mother. The next morning, Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the file again. Lila Alvarez. Female, age 32. No legal documents. Entered the country more than 6 years ago. Flagged by a hospital system after using a different name for her daughter's medical appointment. No record of crime. No previous arrests. No known relatives in the system. Just one child, Ana Alvarez, 6 years old. The file didn't say much, but Daniel knew there was always more to a person than what was written on paper. Normally, he would have closed the case by now, processed the paperwork, made the arrest official. But this time, something inside him was unsure. Something said, "Wait, look deeper." So he did. Instead of finishing the report, Daniel drove back to Lila's neighborhood. He didn't go in his uniform this time. He wore jeans and a simple shirt. He didn't want to scare Ana again. When he knocked on the door, Lila opened it slowly, surprised to see him. "I thought you were coming to—" "Take me," she said carefully. "I'm not here for that," Daniel replied. "Can we talk?" Lila hesitated, then nodded. She let him in. The small living room was clean and quiet. A few toys sat neatly in a corner. There were no signs of wealth, but the place felt like a real home. Simple but warm. Ana was sitting on the couch, hugging her teddy bear. She looked at Daniel with wide eyes but didn't speak. Lila sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. Daniel looked at her for a moment before answering. "Because something didn't feel right yesterday. I've done this job a long time, Lila. I've met a lot of people. But your daughter's words made me stop, and that doesn't happen often." Lila lowered her eyes. She seemed unsure of what to say. "I just want to understand," Daniel continued. "You've been here a long time. You've stayed quiet, followed the rules. You have no record. What's your story?" Lila took a deep breath. Her eyes filled with a quiet pain. "I came here from El Salvador," she said. "My husband was killed by men from a gang. I don't even know why. He wasn't involved in anything. Just wrong place. Wrong time. After that, they started coming to my house. I was scared for Ana. She was just a baby. I had no choice. I ran." Daniel listened quietly, not interrupting. "I crossed the border alone with her. I tried to apply for asylum, but I didn't understand the papers. I was too scared to show up at the meetings. I didn't know English. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I worked and kept my head down, maybe they would forget about me." She paused, wiping her eyes gently. "I cleaned houses. I volunteered at the church. I raised Ana on my own. I never stole, never hurt anyone. I just wanted her to have a safe life, a better one." Daniel looked around. There were pictures on the wall, drawings made by Ana, a few photos of her smiling in a school uniform. It was clear she was loved. "I understand," he said finally. "But the law doesn't always see the story. It only sees the file." Lila nodded. "I know. That's why I didn't fight yesterday. I knew one day you would come. I just didn't think it would be so soon." Ana came over then, walking slowly with her teddy bear in hand. She climbed into her mother's lap and whispered something in Spanish. Lila smiled softly and kissed her daughter's head. "She asked if you're taking me today," she explained. Daniel looked at Anna. She was so small, so full of hope, yet already carrying so much fear. "No," he said. "I'm not taking your mommy today." Anna looked up at him. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. Daniel stood up. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a case. This was a mother and child, a family. As he reached the door, Lila asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," Daniel admitted. "But I'll try to help. That much I promise." When he got back to his car, he didn't go back to the office right away. Instead, he made a call, not to his supervisor, but to someone he knew from a local nonprofit that helped immigrants with legal aid. "I have a situation," he said. "A woman, a little girl, no papers, no crime. I need to know what options they have." The voice on the other end responded, "Bring me the file. We'll see what we can do." Daniel didn't have all the answers. He wasn't even sure if he was breaking the rules. But for once, it didn't matter. He was listening to something deeper than orders. He was listening to his heart, and that heart told him this wasn't over. Not yet. Daniel sat at his desk the next morning, holding Lila's file once again. He looked at her photo clipped to the front of the folder. She looked tired in it, maybe even a little afraid, but there was a calm strength in her eyes. He kept thinking about Anna, the way she held her teddy bear, the way her voice trembled but didn't break. That kind of fear didn't belong in a child's heart. He picked up the phone and called Marisol, a woman he knew who worked with a local nonprofit group that helped families like Lila's. She had been a lawyer for almost 15 years and had seen many cases like this. When she answered, Daniel didn't waste time. "I have a mother and daughter," he said. "No criminal record. Been here over 6 years working quietly. She entered without papers, but she was running from something. Her daughter is a U.S. citizen." Marisol listened carefully. "What's her name?" "Lila Alvarez, and the daughter's name is Anna. I've met them both. This doesn't feel like just another case, Marisol. Something's different. I need to know what can be done, legally." Marisol paused before answering. "If Anna is a citizen, there may be a chance. If we can prove danger in her home country, and that her removal would cause harm to her daughter, we could request humanitarian relief." "How long would that take?" Daniel asked. "Months," she replied. "Sometimes years. But we have to start somewhere." That afternoon, Daniel went back to Lila's house again. He knocked, and this time Lila opened the door more quickly. She was still cautious, but he could tell she trusted him a little more now. "I spoke to someone," Daniel said gently. "A lawyer. She can help, but it's not going to be easy." Lila invited him in and sat quietly as he explained the steps. They would need to collect documents, proof of where she came from, what she escaped, what she's done since living in the U.S., school records for Anna, medical files, church letters, if any. Anything that showed she was part of the community. "I don't have much," Lila said quietly. "No family here, no photos from El Salvador. Just this life I've made." "That might be enough," Daniel said, "and I'll help however I can." For the next few days, Daniel used his free time to guide Lila through the process. He helped her gather what little paperwork she had. Anna's school gave a letter saying she was a bright and well-behaved student. The local pastor wrote a note explaining how Lila had volunteered at the church on weekends, helping clean and even translating songs during services. Daniel was careful. He couldn't involve the agency. He knew he was bending the rules, but he also knew he wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't hiding her. He was giving her a fair chance, something she never had when she first arrived. One afternoon, as Daniel was helping her fill out a form, Anna walked over with a drawing she had made. It was simple. A house, a son, and 3 stick figures, a woman, a child, and a man with a badge. "That's you," she said shyly, pointing to the figure in the badge. Daniel smiled, touched by the gesture. "You gave me a badge?" he asked. Anna nodded. "Because you helped us. You didn't make my mommy cry." Daniel didn't know what to say. His throat tightened. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was doing more than just a job. He was doing something meaningful. Later that week, Marisol visited Lila's home and sat down with her and Anna. She listened to Lila's full story. How she crossed rivers, slept in shelters, and held Anna in her arms through nights of fear just to make it safely across the border. "I didn't know how to ask for help," Lila said quietly. "I thought if I stayed invisible, no one would send me back." "You were doing what you could to survive," Marisol said kindly. "Now, let's try to make it right." The next step was filing for a humanitarian visa, specifically a case where removal would cause exceptional and extremely unusual hardship to a U.S. citizen child. It was rare to be approved, but not impossible. Daniel wrote a statement for the case, explaining what he saw, what he felt, and why he believed Lila and Anna deserved a chance. He knew it was a risk. If his supervisors found out he was getting involved personally, there could be consequences. But he didn't care anymore. Rules mattered, but people mattered more. As they submitted the documents, Daniel reminded Lila, "This won't be easy. It could take a long time. You might get called for interviews. They may still deny it." Lila nodded. "I understand. But at least now, someone sees us." Anna hugged Daniel that day before he left. Her arms were small, but the hug felt full of meaning. Daniel gently patted her back, trying not to let the emotion show on his face. Driving away from their house, he realized something. His heart had changed, not just because of what he saw, but because of what he felt. These people weren't strangers. They were neighbors. They were mothers and children trying to build a life just like anyone else. For the first time in his career, Daniel wasn't just following the law. He was following his conscience. Weeks passed, and the waiting began. Every day felt long. Lila tried to stay calm for Anna, but inside, she was nervous. She didn't know if the papers would help or if someone would suddenly knock on the door to take her away. Daniel checked in often. Sometimes he brought documents. Sometimes he just came by to ask how they were doing. Anna had started calling him Mr. Daniel, and every time he visited, she would run to the door with a smile. He had become more than an officer. Now, he was a part of their lives. But it wasn't easy. Daniel's job was becoming harder to handle. Some of his co-workers started asking questions. "You haven't filed that Alvarez report yet?" one of them said one afternoon in the office. "She's just another undocumented case. What's taking so long?" Daniel gave a simple answer. Still reviewing, but deep inside he knew he was risking more than just questions. He was delaying a report on purpose. He was giving time. Time for Lila's case to be considered, time for hope. He went to Marisol's office later that week to check on the application. She looked tired, but determined. "We submitted everything," she told him. "Now we wait for a response. But I have to be honest, Daniel. These cases don't always go the way we hope. It's rare to get full protection on the first try." Daniel nodded. "I understand, but we have to try. Anna deserves to grow up with her mother." Marisol agreed. "There's one more thing we can do. If we can get Anna's school to write something stronger, maybe a teacher who knows her well. It could help." Daniel offered to help. The next day, he drove to Anna's elementary school. He spoke to her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Landon. She was kind and warm, and she remembered Anna clearly. "She's quiet, but very bright," the teacher said. "Always does her work. Very polite." She once brought me a drawing with flowers and said it was because I reminded her of someone kind. Daniel smiled. Would you be willing to write a short letter for her mother's case? Mrs. Landon didn't hesitate. Absolutely. With the letter in hand, Daniel felt a little more hope. It was small, but every piece mattered. One evening, Daniel went to visit Lila and Anna again. The sun was setting and the sky was painted in soft orange and pink. Lila was in the kitchen making rice and beans, and Anna was sitting on the floor, coloring with her crayons. Daniel handed Lila the teacher's letter. Her hands shook slightly as she read it. She says Anna is kind and strong, Lila whispered. I didn't know she noticed. You're raising her right, Daniel said with a gentle smile. They sat down for dinner together that evening. Lila insisted he stay. You've done so much. Let us thank you. Daniel hesitated, but Anna was already pulling out a chair for him. Sit, Mr. Daniel, she said. You're part of our team now. The food was simple, but it tasted like home. They laughed, talked about Anna's drawings, and even shared stories about Daniel's childhood. For a moment, it didn't feel like a case. It felt like a family. But the next morning, everything changed. Daniel got called into his supervisor's office. The door closed behind him and his heart sank. We've noticed a delay in the Alvarez case, the supervisor said. Why hasn't it been submitted? Daniel kept calm. I'm still collecting information. It's a sensitive situation. The supervisor frowned. Sensitive or not, you're required to report and move the file forward. She's undocumented. That's the law. Daniel felt a knot form in his chest. He had known this moment would come. He looked at the folder in his hands and knew the truth. If he submitted it now, Lila could be taken any day, and Anna would be left behind or taken into state care. I understand, he said quietly. Can I have 2 more days, just to finalize everything? The supervisor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. 2 days. No more. Daniel left the office, walking quickly, his heart racing. 2 days. That was all the time he had to make sure everything possible had been done. He called Marisol and gave her the update. We need to move fast. Anything else we can add to the file? Marisol was already ahead of him. I've just finished a personal request for emergency processing. I'll submit it tonight. But Daniel, if she's denied, they'll come for her. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Then I'll be there. No matter what. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He looked at Anna's drawing, which he had folded and kept in his notebook. The one with the 3 stick figures, one of them wearing a badge. Her quiet trust in him was the one thing that kept him going. He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew this. He couldn't walk away now, not when a little girl believed in him, not when a mother had finally found the courage to hope. The day finally came when Daniel had to go to the immigration office for the hearing about Lila's case. It was a small room filled with chairs, papers, and serious faces. Lila held Anna's hand tightly as they waited. Daniel sat beside them, offering quiet support. Lila looked nervous, but also determined. She knew everything was on the line. Anna was quiet, clutching her teddy bear, her eyes wide but trusting. When the hearing started, the lawyer Marisol spoke clearly about why Lila deserved protection. She told the story of the dangers Lila escaped in her home country and how much she had done to build a safe life here. She explained how Anna depended on her mother and how sending Lila away would hurt the little girl deeply. Daniel was called to speak, too. He shared what he had seen during his visits, how Lila was a responsible, caring mother, and how Anna's simple words had opened his eyes. He told them how he believed Lila deserved a chance to stay. After the hearing, they all waited nervously for the decision. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, Lila prayed. Anna asked questions about what would happen next. Daniel kept checking for news, hoping the hard work would pay off. Then one afternoon, Daniel got a call from Marisol. His heart jumped as he listened. The good news came. Lila's case was approved for temporary protection. It wasn't a full visa yet, but it was enough to keep her and Anna together for now. Daniel smiled as he shared the news with them. Tears came to Lila's eyes, and Anna hugged her mother tightly. "We can stay," Anna whispered. The feeling in the room was different now, lighter, filled with hope. Daniel's life changed too. After that case, he asked to transfer to a department that helped families in need more closely. He wanted to use his experience to make a difference, not just follow orders blindly. Over time, he helped many others like Lila. Each case was different, but he never forgot Anna's quiet voice asking him not to take her mother. That voice stayed with him, reminding him that behind every file was a human story. Lila and Anna continued to build their life. They found friends, attended school, and slowly started dreaming again. They weren't sure what the future held, but for the first time, they felt safe. Daniel visited them often. He watched Anna grow up, from a shy little girl to a bright, young student full of dreams. And every time he saw them, he remembered the moment when a simple plea changed everything. Sometimes, a small voice can open the heart of even the toughest person. Sometimes, kindness can change the course of a life, and sometimes doing the right thing is not just about following rules, it's about listening to what the heart knows is true.